for months, actually over a year and a half, Canada's Conservatives have been calling upon Justin Trudeau to stop his hashtag Welcome to Canada illegal border crossing crisis. But we've gone further than that. You've seen me put forward on this channel, in the House of Commons, in committee, in press conferences, concrete policy solutions to stop the abuse of our asylum system. And those things include ensuring that the Safe Third Country Agreement applies to our entire border, either by renegotiating it or looking at our own legislative powers to get that done. I've suggested some very concrete items for that, but we also have put forward ways to disincent people from abusing the asylum system to begin with. All that aside, Justin Trudeau has had months and months and months and months to try and solve this problem, and he has done exactly nothing. In fact, he has made the problem worse by making certain things permanent, like transporting people from the border crossing to Toronto and putting them up in hotels and expediting work permits and backlogging the system such that people won't have their asylum claim processed for years and can stay in Canada. Like, all of these things are absolutely ridiculous. So in the first few days back here, I have been just really trying to hammer the government, not only on their failures, but to take action, especially now that Conservatives have, really clearly articulated an alternative policy direction. So I want you to watch a set of questions that I've asked over the last 2 days. The first were to, actually the immigration minister himself answered it. Today, Justin Trudeau answered 2 questions, and I want you to watch 2 things. Just the arrogance in the answers. There's one particular moment that I'll talk about after you watch this. It's just unbelievable. So the arrogance, but also just the lack of desire to fix the problem. And, surprise, surprise, I don't really think that they want to solve this issue. I think that they want it to stay permanent. And of course, we know we need to change that. Have a watch and anyway, you'll see. Watch now.
Illegal border crossing crisis under Prime Minister Harper, Mr. Speaker. For any other Canadian, telling their boss that they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on a problem that got worse would mean that they would get fired. So when this Prime Minister stands here and tells Canadians that he spent hundreds of millions of their tax dollars on illegal border crossers, but their numbers continue to grow, it's clear by this failure that he needs to go. How many illegal border crossers are currently being housed in hotels at taxpayer expense?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
I'll educate the honourable member on the disastrous record of immigration. Parents and grandparents had a backlog of 167,000. We've reduced that to 25,000. Spouses had to wait 26 months to reunite. We've reduced that from 75,000 to 15,000. And live-in caregivers who provide an invaluable service to Canadians had to wait 5 to 7 years under that party. We've reduced their backlog from 62,000 to 11,000. They had a disastrous record, and Canadians know that.
Order. Frequently in this House, members will hear things they disagree with or that they're dissatisfied with. They should expect that, I'm sure, by now, and members should be able to contain themselves and not react until it's their turn, which they get eventually. The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Let's talk about education, Mr. Speaker. It has been under this government that Canadians have lost social license for immigration because of that minister's failure to close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement. It has been this Prime Minister and this minister that is putting ahead people who have reached upstate New York instead of reuniting Yazidi genocide victims, Mr. Speaker. It's been this government who over and over again have prioritized people who are not legitimate refugees over the world's most vulnerable. When will this government close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement?
Order. The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about Yazidi refugees. They brought a grand total of 3 Yazidis to Canada. We've brought 1,400 Yazidi survivors of Daesh to Canada, Mr. Speaker. and we're encouraging private sponsors to bring even more. Let's talk about private-sponsored refugees that meet the generosity of Canadians. When it came time to meet and fulfill the generosity of Canadians, they only had 4,500.
Order. 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 I didn't hear anyone yelling when the member for Nose Hill was asking her question. I would ask her not to do so either. I think all members know better than that. So I'd ask the Honourable Minister of Immigration to finish his answer.
In order to meet the generosity of Canadians, we have increased the private-sponsored refugee program spaces to 18,000, Mr. Speaker. That is our record, Mr. Speaker. They couldn't do it. We're getting it done.
Mr. Speaker, 65% of the people who have illegally crossed the border into Canada and claimed asylum already had legal status in the United States, one of the safest democratic places in the world. Think about that for a second. Think about that for a second. Instead of prioritizing people that are languishing in UNHCR camps, instead of prioritizing genocide survivors being reunited with their families, he's doing this. How can he possibly think this is fair?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are responding in an appropriate and measured way with extra investments to ensure that we continue to apply in its integrity our immigration and refugee system. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives enjoy criticizing and drumming up fears and anxiety, but they have no plans other than perhaps to militarize our entire border. These will not work, Mr. Speaker. We are applying our immigration system in a responsible way. We are ensuring that it remains fair. We are ensuring that Canadians remain confident in the strength of our immigration system because they can and should be.
The member for Calgary Nose Hill.
It is not fair to prioritize people who have legal status in upstate New York over the reunion of a family member of a genocide survivor. That is not fair. It is not fair, Mr. Speaker, to call the fears of Canadians that our immigration system is no longer sustainable. That is not fair, Mr. Speaker, and that lies on the hands of this Prime Minister. When will he close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Conservatives are putting forward criticisms without having any idea how they would actually fix this problem. We know how to fix this problem. We are working with stakeholders in the United States and around the world to remind them that there are no shortcuts to becoming a Canadian, that crossing irregularly or illegally does not get you into permanent status any quicker than any other way. This is something that is important to emphasize. The Conservatives are striking out trying to create divisions and fear, but they have no plan to handle things differently.
So first of all, I mean, for the immigration minister to stand up and tell me that I need to be educated on the immigration system is beyond the pale for someone who has performed so poorly that the Prime Minister had to hire somebody to basically be his babysitter without any sort of people reporting to him. And that, of course, is the Minister of Nothing, Bill Blair. So, you know, just the arrogance in that response is indicative of how this government operates with Canadians, right? Now, you'll notice that Justin Trudeau did his typical song and dance where when I stood up and asked some very common sense questions about the fact that today we found out that 65% of the people that are illegally crossing the border into Canada they actually have legal status in the United States of America. Did you hear how the Liberals booed when I noted that the United States is one of the safest places in the world? That's the sort of craziness that we got with this government. You know, and the other thing that really struck me was that Justin Trudeau, once again, he did his fear-mongering thing, right? Like, what just gets me is that hasn't he learned that he can't just call Canadians names, that he actually has a job to do, that he actually has to fix this situation? So, you know, again, look, my job is to hold the government to account for their failures, but we've gone beyond that. The Conservative Party of Canada has put forth some really concrete actions. You can look through my channel on some of the policy measures that I've put forward, but at this point in time, we're going to continue to ensure that Canadians know what's happening here by asking questions in the House. But also, you know, I really think at this point in time, the only way that we're going to solve the illegal border crossing crisis is by having Justin Trudeau unelected in 2019. Working hard for you. Have a great day.